I prefer really.
Oh boy, do I have a lot to talk about today. I best keep the music going a bit actually. I hope it's not too loud. Because there is so much to go through. Oops. I've got tabs from here all the way to here about the situation. So I'm going to do like a video on it, I think, like a long video, but damn, it's been a while. One minute late by German standards. I'd get fired for that, wouldn't I, if I was that late in Germany. But yeah, I bet you were wondering what's going on here. Let's see if I can find. Trying to see if I could find a clip of Jaden using it, but I couldn't actually find it. It's called the emergency card. What's the emergency? Country's crumbling, mate. That's what the emergency is. I was going to stream yesterday, but I was absolutely knackered. But, you know, I managed to get an extra hour of sleep in, so I am here. So yeah, that's what the emergency is. It's the fact that I could actually stream today. So everyone best be prepared. Because there is so much content to go through today. So much. I cannot emphasize how much content there is to go through. People are just going absolute bananas. I've been trying to cover it as best I can, but I'm late. I'm so late to everything. But yeah, I am live right now. It's been a while since I've done an actual politics live stream. A long time. Oh, Mike, mate, you'll get a better answer from everyone. You'll get a better answer from them students, that's for sure. Is Truss going to be sacked within a month? I don't know. The Tories are very jittery. They are very, very jittery right now. They have no idea what they're doing. Let me know if there's any volume issues as well. The volume should be good. But yeah. Let's see what's happened. What's the emergency? Let's see. Is there any other comments? I've lost track. Yeah, always an emergency. It's true. Oh, what a day. Volume is fine. Good to know. Good to know. So yeah, if anyone doesn't know, the pound dropped significantly. I think it went to 103 on the dollar, something like that. I'm trying to see, because I can't. The app I use, not sponsored, is trading 2-on-2. I use it to monitor currency. Just because I don't think Google's the most reliable for it. But oh boy, it's looking. If we have a look at you can download the app, I think, if you want. It's not a sponsored link. It's just the one I use. But if you were shorting the currency this week, you'd be making a lot of money. So if we look at the euro to the pound, which I know you can't see what I'm looking at, but just bear with me. It's the euro's up on the pound by 1.35% as opposed to last week. And if you look at a month on month, it's gone up by about almost 4%. If you look at where are we going? The pound to the dollar, it's gone down 1.18%. But if you include, I think, that disastrous, I'm trying to remember when, that joker actually opened his big mouth and decided to tank the currency. Today it's gone up slightly, but it's not, if you look at it week on week, which I think is the best measure to look at it, it's not going great. I'll be honest with you. It's gone really badly for the UK. Week on week is probably the better look at it. I use Yahoo Finance for the web version. That might be better actually. I'm gonna go to the conference outside on Saturday. It should be historic. Yeah, that's gonna be insane, honestly. What we'll do is we'll cut to some videos and then we'll cut back to the chat. So this is obviously, I'm sure you've watched this video. I think Max covered it, which is Kwarteng running away.
What are you going to do about the turmoil on the markets this morning, sir?
That's true, yeah. They're not bothered about currency crashes because they don't actually understand how important it is to have currency stabilisation, especially for the UK, which imports more than it exports. That's, I'm going to adjust the mic slightly, which imports more than it exports. And also, we do not produce a lot of raw material, so we have to import stuff to also turn those into other goods to export. So it's just ridiculous.
make any comment now. Thank you.
What about the city? What conversation are you having with the Bank of England, sir? Do you have anything to say about what's going on, sir?
What's that little?
Do you have anything to say?
What's that? You guys, what's this? What's this I'm seeing here? This little eyebrow flick. What's this?
Do you have anything to say about what's going on, sir?
He's gone. He's gone all Jim from The Office there. What's that about?
Are you planning to reverse the announcement you made last Friday, sir?
I've been to this area of London. It's quite nice.
What do you have to say about everything that's been going on, sir?
I'm just going to my office now. Thanks.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
I mean, he's just straight up run away. You know, he's gone all Mourinho on us.
Not to speak. If I speak, I am in big trouble. In big trouble, and I don't want to be in big trouble.
That's Kwarteng. That's Kwarteng right now. He's gone all.
I prefer really.
You know, look, okay. What we'll do is we'll go for this, right? Let's have a look. So let's see if I can get this working.
I prefer really not to speak. If I speak, I am in big trouble. In big trouble, and I don't want to be in big trouble.
That's what's going through his mind.
I prefer really not to speak. If I speak, I am in big trouble. In big trouble, and I don't want to be in big trouble.
To be fair, true words were never spoken. True words have never been spoken before. Last I checked, the pound is beginning in Google, put in the graph, seen the last 7 years. Yeah, it's not great, honestly, over the last decade. Even under Labour, I think it was still kind of dropping, but not dropping anywhere as bad as what we've seen currently. What we've seen currently is an absolute disaster. The video I posted today about disaster capitalists, you know, they're doing the big sweep on the UK. Most definitely they are swooping in on us. And with the currency being down, it allows a lot of foreign investors to swoop in. Perfect opportunity to buy up UK assets. You've got a lot of hedge funders betting against the bonds in the UK, also betting against the currency. The one smart thing Kwarteng has done, I think, and the government has done is to keep their mouths shut. Honestly, is to follow Mourinho's first rule, which is
not to speak. If I speak, I am in big trouble. In big trouble, and I don't want to be in big trouble.
You know, that's the situation right now.
I prefer it.
Sorry, I keep playing that clip because I enjoy it that much because it's so. That rule just applies to so many different things there. So many different things. So the IMF has openly criticised the UK's plan over its tax cuts, warning that the measures are likely to fuel the cost of living crisis. Because what they're doing is they're borrowing, significant amounts of money here, significant amounts of money to fuel these tax cuts. They're not built on growth. These aren't tax cuts built on growth. These are a tax giveaway and borrowing money, effectively selling bonds in order to fund that. Here you've got on Wednesday morning, sterling fell by 0.7% to 1.06 after the IMF raised concerns. I was speaking to someone else about it. I won't name him because I didn't get his consent to, give his ideas here. But what he said was basically a lot of the Chinese markets were shorting UK currency most definitely. We know UK traders were as well, but the European Central Bank and the Fed in America did not speak out on this because that would have made the situation worse. You can see here. You can see the IMF raised concerns and the currency. The two might not be exactly related, depending on how you read on it. But Wednesday fell to 1.6 IMF after the IMF raised concerns. So that tells you is the IMF's concerns about it has fueled further kind of selling of sterling, which is just crazy. Kwarteng has said the biggest tax package in 50 years, but the £45 billion. So you've got here, right, £45 billion worth of tax cuts. Then you have £60 billion worth of borrowing for the energy stuff, right? That's over £100 billion of borrowing, which they haven't actually answered how they're going to fund it. Like how they're going to grow the economy, how they're going to pay that back. They've never explained that. And the first question Tories always ask Labour whenever they come up with any policies is, how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for it? Or how are they going to pay for this? Because they can say it's going to be done by growth. But the problem is with them getting rid of the 45p tax rate, that money's not coming back through in tax. Most definitely not, especially with corporation tax. They're keeping it lower, which I'm not necessarily against keeping corporation tax lower because typically it's multinationals get away with paying minimal tax because they have loads of PLCs and stuff, and they just funnel the money, the EU money, they'll funnel to Ireland because it's lower tax, 15, I think it's like 15% or something like that, and the American money they'll funnel back to the US of A or to the Cayman Islands. Are these people insane as to ever believe that they can implement their ideology without massive resistance? They genuinely didn't realise this would be an issue. I don't think they thought the markets would react like this. That's the main problem. They thought the markets would be okay with this, and if sterling fell, who cares? That's what they thought. The IMF are calling to reevaluate. You've got Kwarteng's fiscal rules out in November will aim to have debt falling within 5 years. The end of the OBR forecast period implies tough spending controls for years to come. Meanwhile, IMF on the UK, Bank of England Bank of England rates forecast the top 6%. So what this means is, what they're saying is, they're going to do rampant austerity again. This is 2010 on steroids now. That's what we're seeing, 2010 on steroids. Tax cuts for the rich, that's what we're going to see, and also much harsher austerity for the poor people. And we've already seen really harsh austerity for working class people. We've seen really harsh austerity, and we're going to see it again. We're going to see something far worse, I think, this time round. Especially with Kwarteng as the Chancellor, he's trying to force people into work, even though people, unemployment is incredibly low in this country. You're going to see things like that. You're going to see more cases where people they're trying to force people into jobs that they might not necessarily have the expertise to do, might not be in the right health to do it. So that's what we're going to see here. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. It's going to be an absolute nightmare. This is historic stuff here. The people will scream for socialism. I don't think they will. The people in this country are idiots. But if the Bank of England rate hits 6% for mortgages, the retail rate, which is the rate you pay at the bank, is normally, it can be a few percentage points higher. So you're talking potentially paying 8% interest on a mortgage. People can't afford that. That's hundreds of pounds potentially, hundreds of pounds. On a mortgage that people can't afford. And if you haven't got a fixed rate right now, I'd be very concerned, especially because the banks are pulling out the product. So what that means is, typically banks offer, say, 2% fixed rate for 5 years, right? What they're doing is, hello, Akis, the Mad Scotsman. What a bank can typically offer you is, say, in a normal scenario, they'll offer you, say, a 2-year fixed rate. So what that means, your interest rate is fixed for 2 years. And after that 2 years, it goes to the variable rate, which is a couple of percentage points on the Bank of England rate. So if you can't get a product right now and you don't have a fixed rate mortgage right now, what that means is your mortgage can spike really rapidly. That's not financial advice. That's just the situation that is, in my opinion, happening now. There'll be a few vacancies at the Treasury soon for the unemployed to fill, no doubt. Likely to scream for national socialism. I mean, that's the wrong kind of socialism. But yeah, this is genuinely terrifying. This one right here. You got the IMF statement. We don't recommend large, unstructured, untargeted fiscal packages. Sorry if it's a bit glary on your eyes there. The black and white contrast. We do not recommend large and untargeted fiscal packages at this juncture, as it is important that fiscal policy does not work at purposes to monetary policy. So what they're saying is, you can't do rapid tax cut. You can't do unfunded promises like this. Yeah, I mean, you can say I'm being wrong or I'm being mean or whatever, but given the fact that a significant amount of people in this country voted for the Conservatives, right? The people in this country are idiots. Damn Ackies. Let's have a look. So you got the Tory boy Pierce here.
Tories, people close to Rishi Sunak, for instance, who'll be thinking, we thought this might happen.
He didn't think this would happen. He said it would happen. They call him Mystic Sunak because he predicts these things.
Because it's a gamble. I said yesterday, audacious, bold, but it's a gamble.
They're gambling with other people's money. It's easy to gamble when it's not your money.
Gamble.
The truth is that, Andrew, we've all been telling voters and the financial markets for decades that you can only cut taxes if you can show the sums add up and the borrowing is under control and the national debt is coming down. And suddenly on Friday, for the first time in my adult lifetime anyway, a chancellor said, actually, it's okay to borrow for tax cuts, and it's OK for the national debt to go up and up and up. And don't you think that, in retrospect, all those, we're going to challenge Treasury orthodoxy, doesn't that look all a bit
Treasury orthodoxy,
now?
That's right. Well,
the thing is, though, like, it doesn't take a genius to figure out, right, the Treasury orthodoxy. You cannot do unfunded tax cuts, especially with borrowing. You can't borrow your way into doing tax cuts. It makes no sense. Genuinely. In this case, the Treasury orthodoxy makes some sense. If you're trying to do Keynesian economics, where you borrow the money and you look to invest it and to create jobs, etc., long-term, decent jobs, that makes sense. If you're going to borrow it for tax cuts, it makes no sense. If you're a millionaire and you get wherever, if you get a 30k tax return or whatever, 30k off your taxes, there's no guarantee you're going to spend that 30k because you're already a millionaire. What's 30k to you? Nothing.
let's see, Ed. It's day 4, day 5. It's not gone very well, has it?
That's an understatement.
So, but the people close to Truss, and remember, she didn't get even half of Tory MPs supporting her in that leadership election.
That's very important. The Tory MPs might not hesitate too much to get rid of her because she's not popular in the party. Sorry about mouth noises. She won the members' vote, not by a ton. Let's be honest now, but also the fact that I think the Tory MPs would rather have Sunak, Johnson, or Penny Mordaunt over Liz Truss. I think they would take those three over Liz Truss, and that's a very dangerous position to be in when you're the leader of a party. When you have three kind of people who are a lot more popular than you, in my opinion, that could easily take your spot. Just because they badly need some economic growth to fund these tax cuts, it doesn't mean the growth will spontaneously appear. You just got to believe, Joni. You got to believe growth will happen. You know, if I believe I'll be 6'2", and I keep believing in it, I will become 6'2". If they're gambling with other people's money and it fails, they should go to prison. The same as somebody who, for example, Nick Leeson for... I have no idea what Nick Leeson for Barings is. Tory boy Pierce struggling here. He really is. But he's their top boy, you know.
They say we've got to hold our nerve and hope for the best.
Okay, all right. Andrew?
I talked, there was somebody did say to me yesterday, actually, you've got to think about the benefits of there are some benefits of
oh, no.
the lower pound, although it's going to be huge on inflation.
We must have 40 people here. I think that might be a record. That might be a record for me streaming. So, thanks everyone for joining. And 4 people left.
It's going to be bad for mortgage rates. It's going to be good for exporters. It's going to be...
The thing with exports is that because of all of the paperwork and stuff like that, in order for our exports to the EU to go up, that's not going to happen. Our exports to like other countries, third countries, excuse me, hit the fizz too earlier. Other countries like America, you know, those kind of third countries, it will boost a bit, but at the same time, I don't think it'll go up a ton. Especially because we have to import stuff to create things. That's another problem the UK has.
Really good for exporters.
Yes,
That's
it
about
makes
it.
our goods.
This is like the
it
life
makes
of
our
Brian.
goods cheaper for anybody
As
who
the
has
Latin American
Yes,
finance minister
exactly.
said, as the Latin American finance minister said, in the middle of a crisis, colleagues, we've come to the edge of the abyss, and it's time for a bold step forward.
Well, that was just boring, wasn't it? You got the what's this guy's professor does not hold back here. This is another one I think Max covered as well.
These are uncosted estimates, and they just don't look credible. So the question is, if you're the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and what you've done is you've stood up and you've crashed the markets, you crashed the bond market, you crashed the foreign exchange market, the stock market's dropped, the housing market's in trouble, and you created a giant recession because the Bank of England has to raise rates. Your credibility is completely trashed. And what's the Prime Minister going to say? Well, at the moment, she appears to be hiding. But the questions that journalists like you and Ian King and everybody else and Ed Conway and others are going to ask is, so what are you going to do? It's all completely failed, hasn't it? They told you it was going to fail, and it has. Now what are you going to do? And obviously the question then is, politically...
Mate, we'll get to the pension funds.
Does she survive the month? Does she actually get to? And does he get to this statement in 2 months' time? Because presumably politically...
You know, that is true. You know, he's saying he's going to speak in November. Right now, he's saying...
Really not to speak. If I speak, I am in big trouble. In big trouble. And I don't want to be in big trouble.
You know, right now,
I prefer really.
right now he's not saying much. You know, you're talking November, which I think it's end of November as well. That's almost 2 months away. Depending on when in November he's going to speak. That's insane, genuinely insane. I'm just mind blown at this.
Politically, they've created a disaster, and there's even an issue. Could you actually get this through the House of Commons? Unclear. I have never seen anything like this. I've been an economist for 50 years. I went through the Great Recession. I have never seen such raging incompetence ever.
That's what Labour should run with, honestly.
Clear. I have never seen anything like this. I've been an economist for 50 years. I went through the Great Recession. I have never seen such raging incompetence ever.
That's what they should. You know, the Great Recession was bad, but it could have been a lot worse if we had this lot in charge. Could you imagine? Crispin Odey, we're going to switch gears here, hedge fund manager and Tory donor, told the FT that he's been running shorting positions against the pound and gilts, so bonds, for some time. He says market has underestimated how high inflation is here to stay. Odey described his bets against gilts as the gift that keeps on giving. He also blamed Remainers for the problems as well. Odey denies he has taken advantage because Kwarteng previously worked at Odey Asset Management. There's a mad idea that one's behind every twist and turn. All I can do is catch the wind now and again. Odey saying about sterling hitting record lows. It's been helpful. Sterling and gilts is all part of the same story of higher inflation. The market has been a long way away from where inflation was. Essentially saying, look, I figured it out before you guys. I'm smarter than you. Meanwhile, the Telegraph are saying Truss is fighting for the future of Brexit Britain. She must stand firm. So you might get some decent journos at the Telegraph, but you know the core of it, the Tory graph, is for the Tories. And if I were them, I would definitely look at maybe not being so supportive, given the fact that it is not looking so good. You got mortgage lenders pull deals as rates rise. So this is the thing I was referencing earlier, which is here you got Santander and Yorkshire Building Society have suspended mortgage deals after a fall on the pound-fueled forecast rates rising interest rates. A number of lenders have temporarily halted mortgage offers for new customers. So that's like I said, you normally with a mortgage or remortgage or a new deal, they'll offer you whatever 3% interest rate, for example, fixed. But now they're taking that off because if they offer you a 3-year fix now and interest rates shoot up to 5%, that's money that effectively they may have lost in a way, or at least profits they wouldn't gain. Economists now expect the interest rates to more than double to 5.8% by April from the current level of 2.25. Interest rates have previously been forecast to hit 4% by next May, so essentially it's going to be 1.8% higher, much earlier than they predicted. It's wild. Lenders are also suspending mortgage offers for new customers include HSBC, Santander, Post Office, Skipton Building Society and Virgin Money, and no doubt there'll be more and more of them, a lot more to do this. You got Julie Ann Haynes, Chief Executive at Principality Building Society, said lenders had to stress test mortgages to make sure if the Bank of England base rate goes up, customers can still afford their monthly payments. And that's going to be a nightmare scenario for a lot of people. She said the reason mortgage rates are going up quite quickly in recent months was because banks and building societies have to be able to make a margin. Economists began forecasting a hike in interest rates when the pound plunged against the dollar on Monday. So there's a lot of fear here in the mortgage industry. You've got a blow for Liz Truss as voters back higher taxes to pay for public services. So this is off the back of Liz Truss effectively borrowing and doing tax cuts, because at the end of the day, I think most people, if you're not stupid, would know that the services are going to be hit really badly. Most voters want to see taxes go up so the government can increase spending on public services, according to a new study. 61%. I'm trying to remember if they covered the windfall tax in this one. I don't think they did. It must be another article where the majority of voters wanted a windfall tax. This setup is really weird, this picture. It's a really weird picture. But the majority of voters support higher taxes. You've got the UK's mounting debts will be unsustainable if sweeping tax cuts go ahead, warning the IFS. So the government can't argue they weren't warned about this. This is the Wednesday before Kwarteng's statement. Britain's mounting debts will be unsustainable if the government presses ahead with sweeping tax cuts in a mini budget on Friday, according to the IFS. So the IFS warned the government about this. They warned the government that this would happen. So it's just bizarro world for the government to claim anything else. So Sorry, the energy bill thing costs 150 billion. Not I thought it was 60 billion. The measures will be in addition to the energy price freeze for consumers and businesses. Oh, I see. This is including the business one. So you're talking 200 around the 200 billion mark for borrowing, and the government have to answer how they're going to pay for it. That might be, is that more than they spent during COVID? Can anyone look up the COVID figures for how much the government borrowed? Because 100, you're talking about the 200 billion mark. That's wild. The IFS said recent rapid increases in the cost of debt interest highlight the risks of substantially and permanently increased borrowing and putting debt on an ever-increasing path. You even had Moody's saying the UK's credit rating might be reviewed, which is further going to push up borrowing costs. The tax cut gamble will make debt unsustainable, the IFS. That's wild. These stock pictures the BBC uses are hilarious. Liv Truss, according to one of the ministers, saying Liz Truss's tax cuts are not tax cuts for the rich are not trickle-down economics, a Tory minister insists, which is interesting, especially when we go on to our next article. Is there anything you guys want me to discuss? Seriousness. It's the Tory scorch and burn policy, leave the next government absolutely nothing. Honestly, it is, but at the same time, they've never done anything this bad. The last 12 years of Tory rule have been not great, we'll be honest, not great at all. But this is a crash and burn right here. But I feel like it's not, they didn't do this intentionally. It's weird to say. It feels like they didn't expect this to happen. It genuinely feels like that. The Prime Minister on Tuesday said the rich would get a disproportionate benefit out of her economic approach, but that this would unilaterally be good for everyone in this country. I mean, it's ridiculous. The comments were widely interpreted as a return to trickle-down economics. But Foreign Office Minister Gillian Keegan said that wasn't actually a message. You cannot say what we've done is trickle-down economics. We've just put a massive package in place, blah, blah, blah. What they keep arguing is it's tax cuts across the board. Everyone's benefiting from it, even though the rich people are benefiting way more than the rest of us. So yeah, that's not great. The minister told the BBC that the government had unveiled a massive package to support people, and that if you look at the definition of trickle-down economics, that's definitely not the right fit for it. I mean, they're arguing semantics here, especially when Liz Truss went to the UN and urged world leaders to follow the UK with trickle-down economics. So if Liz Truss went to the UN and said, we need to do trickle-down economics, and then you've got the government minister saying this isn't trickle-down economics, someone's telling a lie here. Which one is it? So, evidently these ministers know how unpopular trickle-down economics is and are trying to argue this is not trickle-down economics when we know for a fact it is. The Bank of England, economists hint at a significant interest rate rises, and you really don't want interest rate rises to be happening right now. Not like this. You're talking the cost of living to go up. I especially worry about renters, because landlords can keep trying to put their rents up and things like that. And what you also don't want is, as interest rates rise and there's more uncertainty, you got more people who are going to put money into savings, which you don't want, because that's not going to help you get out of a recession. During a recession, I think you want interest rates to be lower because you want less people to save and more people to spend. I saw the Labour files, made me feel physically sick. Was that by Al Jazeera? Its chief economist said the bank will have to deliver a significant monetary policy to protect sterling, which we did see. Hugh Phil said that there had been significant market consequences after the Chancellor made a series of tax cuts. It comes as several banks have pulled mortgage deals. Speaking at the IMF, yes. Yeah, that is the International Monetary Policy Forum. No, that's not the IMF. Mr. Pill said that the bank was certainly not indifferent to the repricing of financial assets that we've seen. A pledge of further tax cuts by Kwarteng, and worries about high interest rates knocked investors' confidence and saw the pound touch a record low against the dollar on Monday. You can see here just massive knock-on effects. Put the Tories ahead on 33 points. There's no way it's 54 points. Absolutely, there's no. I genuinely refuse to believe there's no way it's 54 points. You're gonna have to, Alex. You're gonna have to cite some sources there. You're gonna have to cite which polls you're looking at. And if it's not YouGov, it's probably not really worth looking at. But There's no way it's 54. 33, I doubt that as well. On 33 points. There's no way they're ahead. Are you saying they're ahead? Are you saying they're ahead of the Tories by 33 points, or they're on 33 points? That's the question. I doubt there would be check Britain elects is 54. If that's the case, then that's a fatality. You've got here from the falling pound. What does it mean for the UK? For me and my finances. So what that means is higher prices. So a fall in the value of the pound will increase the price of goods and services imported into the UK from overseas. So that one relatively makes sense. Let's see. Higher repayments for some mortgages. A falling pound is likely to push inflation, which tracks how much the cost of living. Inflation, the metrics we use for inflation are not the best, in my opinion. Some economists have suggested that it might call an emergency meeting this week to raise rates ahead of schedule. And again, that just adds more and more uncertainty. You got fresh pressure on energy costs because typically we buy, I think, gas on the international market. So that means we pay whatever the international rate is, normally done in dollars, which, again, if your currency is going down against the dollar, not great. So, yeah, I think they should explain it here somewhere. The fact that oil prices are based on the dollar means that petrol could also be more expensive for the UK, as it costs more to be imported by fuel companies. Although oil prices have been falling in recent weeks, consumers are not likely to see the benefit. So, now that oil prices are coming down... Oh no, my cat's going to start speaking. Even though oil prices are going down, it doesn't mean that the UK are going to benefit from that because of currency. Stronger sales for UK firms who sell goods abroad. I genuinely can't see exports going up that much. I don't think it's going to happen. More expensive trips abroad, that's pretty standard. There's nothing special there. We know that travel is going to be a lot more, cost a lot more, and it's just going to be a nightmare. This is not a crisis claim, Minister.
Sam, despite all that pressure, no sign of any government U-turn or reset.
Tax cuts remain. The plan for growth announced on Friday stands. Kwasi Kwarteng staying in his job. But Anna, it's so much more than that. This is not a number 11 or a number 10 that's in crisis mode. In fact, number 10 do not think that Friday's growth statement with the gigantic tax cuts funded by borrowing is even the main reason that we ended up with emergency action from the Bank of...
Yeah, I don't think we'll see a poll of Labour 54 points ahead of the Tories. That's just impossible.
England today. They think international factors much more important in that they don't see it as something...
But they need to ask the government what international factors are at play here and why is it not affecting everyone else? Why is the ECB not in meltdown? Why is the Fed not in a meltdown? And the central banks of other countries, non-Eurozone countries. I don't know if... I think... Let's see. I'm trying to remember. Are countries outside of the Eurozone, do they have to adhere to the European Central Bank? They must not do. They must have their own central bank, like, I'm trying to remember which countries. Some of them use krona, like the Czech Republic, for example. Wouldn't they have their own central bank because they're not in the Eurozone? How come they're not in a meltdown? So, why is it only the UK that's having a central bank meltdown in the developed world? The Canadians aren't having a meltdown either. It's just us. What international factors are at play here? The British economy seems to be especially sensitive to international factors, yeah? That's because we're global Britain, mate.
That needs to divert them off the course of meetings about things like the Northern Ireland Protocol and other issues ahead of Conservative Party conference. A cabinet minister involved in all of this said to me that, frankly, the idea of a link between Friday and today was BS. Apologies for the language. But that underlines how they think that this is even perhaps going away. Some in number 10.
I genuinely don't understand how... this must be the most inept group of people running a country outside of Russia. They're the only people who are more inept than the government that we have currently. The fact that they can't see a link between Kwarteng's statements and the situation of the pound is crazy. They're even going as far as blaming Labour, saying because Labour are polling well, that's putting uncertainty on the pound. I mean, that's just wild.
10 see this simply as a communication and as a stakeholder management issue. They don't even think that voters are particularly paying attention.
That's wow.
And that they won't really care what's going on.
No, anyone who's not on a fixed rate mortgage right now have gotten letters through the post over the last month or so saying their mortgage price has gone up. Trust me that people are aware. People are well aware of the situation right now. People in rented accommodation are well aware of the interest rates going up and the damage it's doing. People are well aware of the cost of living crisis, and no doubt the costs will continue to go up, especially as the pound drops.
One person involved in all of this, in fact, said they were going for dinner tonight. Now,
Hope
I
they
spoke
choke
to
on
one
their
Tory
dinner.
this evening who is deeply concerned that if you
Might be the only smart person in the room.
don't even identify what the problem is, you can hardly begin to solve it. I suppose we just now wait to see what the markets do next.
It's just, honestly, it's wild that the government just aren't concerned by this at all. You can even see the kind of disbelief, I think, on his face there, where he's reporting on this, the fact that there's no concern. There's no concern on the government whatsoever. You've got Ava Santina, who's definitely worth following on Twitter, saying, lift the bankers' bonuses on Friday, beg them not to short the pound on Wednesday. Remarkable times we are in. You've got Mujtaba Rahman saying the EU side is very concerned about the contagion risk of the UK fiscal actions pose to financial stability in the Eurozone. Plenty of Euro area banks and insurance firms are exposed to UK gilts, so effectively they own a lot of UK bonds. And this is serious. EU Commission is worried, IMF is worried, White House is worried. And let's not forget that, they still have access to UK's clearing houses and access to UK UK assets effectively. The EU members can still buy them up, so they can buy up things like gilts, and they use those within their pension funds and investment portfolios. So if the UK bonds completely melt down here, it's going to cause a massive crisis within the EU as well as the Americans, because typically companies can buy up bonds and use them as leverage, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And the problem is that if you're using bonds as collateral, you're going to be putting yourself in a very dangerous situation. My rent's gone up by £100 in a room share, all bills included, but heating's turned off. What if the bills included? Why is the heating turned off? That's a rent increase that a lot of people won't be able to afford. Considering the shorting the pound is one way for bankers to raise their uncapped bonuses, good luck with that. Yeah. Labour returning a 333 MPs with 41.7% of the vote share, majority of 8. EC predicts, who's EC? Calculus predicts Tories returning 222 with 31.4, SNP with 51. Bear with me one moment, my cat's having a meltdown. I'll be back. Just gotta let him out. He was upset at the door for keeping him out. Some tea lights under upside down stainless steel pot radiators, a lot of heat. Okay. We've hit 40 viewers. That's crazy. Conservatives is the economic responsible party. Yeah, I don't think they can claim that anymore. But evidently there's a lot of concern over the UK, and this concern will last a long time with regards to UK bonds. Very concerning, and we'll talk more about the bonds in a few minutes when we get to some of the longer threads here. You got Kwarteng will ask investors to stop shorting the pound. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to go down very well. It's going to go for the whole. Excuse me, sorry, I've had too much fizzy drink today. He's going for the stop it, get some help, be patriotic investors. Stop shorting the pound. Heating's off because 8 people live here, so heating costs through the roof. Apparently, I'm not cold. I can handle it. So I work in a meat store. Got you. Let the cat back in. He's your co-commentator. He's left the building now. He's done for the day. He's done for the day. Here you got here we got the the great Sunak here predicting all of these things that will happen. So we've got Liz Truss here saying I don't believe in the denialism, and
to borrow more in order to cut taxes.
Your own economic advisor has said that would lead to mortgage rates, interest rates going up to 7%.
That's Patrick Minford, by the way. I think you predicted that. Patrick Minford, who genuinely doesn't get a lot of things right, but he might be right on this one.
Imagine what that's going to do for everyone here and everyone watching. That's thousands of pounds on their mortgage bill. It's going to tip millions of people into misery, and it's going to mean we absolutely have no chance of winning the next election either.
Rishi, I don't believe this negative, declinist language.
It's your own
that we're
economic
hearing.
advisor, Liz. It's not mine. It's your own advisor.
I have lots of economists that are backing my plans.
She didn't.
Everybody thinks
he's the
that
one that
putting
you
up.
cited.
Well, let's see. His name is Patrick, so you can break that down into Pat and Rick. So that's 2. That's 3, really. Patrick, Pat, and Rick. So what's that? Patrick, Pat, Rick. I'll eat in a bit, Mum. Yeah. So you got Patrick, Pat, and Rick. So that's 3. Minford, Min, and Ford, which is what, another 3. So you got 6 economists that back her, I guess. So you can break that down too. I'm clutching at straws here, guys.
Everybody thinks that putting up taxes at this moment is going to hurt the economy.
The thing is, putting up taxes wasn't the best idea either, but it's much better than what they're doing now. Pat Ford and Rick Min. Well, see, there we go. We've got 3 people right there. Pat Ford and Rick Min. Definitely Rick Min. Yeah, respect that. Did anyone read Peter Osborne's back in the We're Living a Lie? There's people who are, to be far worse than me, it's the disabled and people living on their own. Let's see, everybody thinks.
Pressing economic...
And then we've got this one, this one.
Priority for the new Prime Minister and the new government is to grip inflation. We cannot
grip inflation, throw it down the stairs, be angry. Peter Osborne, I had a feeling it was Peter Osborne.
Worse. Inflation is the enemy that makes everybody poorer. It erodes your savings. It erodes your living standards. It means that those of you that have mortgages will see your interest rates go up higher and higher. So I don't think the responsible thing to do right now is launch into some unfunded spree of borrowing and more debt. That will just make inflation worse. It will make the problem longer.
Let's be clear. We have inflation because of our monetary policy, that we haven't been tough enough on the monetary supply. That's the way I would address that issue. Okay. But it is wrong.
Interest rates up. Mortgages nightmare.
It is.
Liz, we have to be honest.
Can't advocate for murder on the channel, guys.
We have to be honest. But borrowing...
And that's the problem Sunak had. He kept trying to be honest with people. That's not what politicians do. I mean, look at the state of this, right? You've got the classic both sidesism. You got one guy giving the reality of the situation, which unfortunately I have to give Sunak credit for. Nope, I have not read it. You've got Sunak giving absolute reality here, in the sense of if we do this unfunded borrowing for tax cuts, it's not going to go down well. And you've got Liz Truss saying...
It's your own economic advisor, Liz. It's not mine. It's your own...
I don't believe this negative, declinist language.
It's your own...
Negative, declinist language. That's what we're seeing here. That's the reason why we're in this mess. Because of people like her... Excuse me. Sorry, Dr. Pepper. Because of people like her saying, oh, just believe hard enough and we can get anywhere. Just like what Boris Johnson did. That's what she's doing now. We have 50 people here. That's insane. Inflation is a gift for people with mortgages and debt. Is it? Is it a gift for people with mortgages? Inflation? We have 48 people. I'll take that.
Economic advisor, Liz. It's not mine.
It's your own economic advisor. I think it was Minford. We go on. I think there's more. Just what's happened to the UK economy. This is quite a long thread. But, you know, you've got Sunak basically warning this would happen. You got Liz Truss enjoying a big polling lead. You got the Washington. So, you know, just to be sure, it wasn't just the prospect of a Truss premiership hitting the pound. The dollar has been very strong in recent months due to the Federal Reserve aggressively increasing interest rates faster than the Bank of England. So clearly a lot more trust. Am I going to read it? Probably not. You've got here a situation where the Fed increased interest rates quicker than the Bank of England, which put a lot more faith in the Fed, which it's fair enough. You know, I'm not going to explain, I'm not going to pretend I know exactly how it works. But if US interest rates are higher than the UK interest rates, that boosts the dollar versus the pound normally. According to this guy anyways, investors want to put more of their money into the dollar denominated bonds, bigger returns than pound bonds. So they buy dollar and sell pounds. It makes sense if you're buying bonds. I'm trying to say I got a notification for something. It was in this context Truss took the keys to number 10, market skeptical, US economy stronger, watching closely for her to unveil her economic plans. These were delayed by the national mourning period, and then boy did she unveil them. Here's quoting. It's worth remembering that markets are like a beauty contest. You're constantly being judged against what your peers are doing, where investors could be putting their money. So you must be careful about sending out negative signals for investors, which make it look like you're less safe, which is true that, investors are looking to make a return, the best return they can. And in this day and age, they have tons of options. So many options, so many different countries you can buy bonds in. Not publishing independent fiscal forecast from the budget of Office of Budget Responsibility, the OPR, looks sketchy. And at the time, I said I think it looked sketchy. I think everyone else did as well. Everyone said it looks a bit sus. Not announcing a medium-term plan, which is true, they haven't done. All they're saying is we're going to grow the economy. Haven't done that. It's also against the backdrop of having fired the most senior civil servant in the Treasury, Tom Scholar. Again, this was a negative signal for the markets because she got rid of someone who made it look like he was sacked for. He was sacked because Liz Truss hates Treasury orthodoxy. Quoting saying there's more to come, so saying there's going to be more tax cuts. Inflation in the UK shops hit record highs, the pound tumbles. UK bonds plunge as government pledges more borrowing than expected. So effectively means the government has to sell more bonds, which creates more supply. So that's genuinely how I've kind of read it. It's a bit tricky because this stuff's all kind of opinions. Meanwhile, the UK's borrowing costs started to rise quite alarmingly. When bonds are falling, their yield rises, e.g. the debt interest you pay on the bonds. Falling government bonds equals higher cost of borrowing. Bad for the government, which, again, this stuff's quite confusing. It's well above my pay grade. But there is a couple of threads I've got that explain it better. This one I'll save. This one I'll save. But you've got why did the Bank of England do today and why does this matter? So this one's yesterday, a thread saying the Bank of England has announced it will carry out temporary purchase of long, outdated UK bonds. Here's what that means. No, I don't think Quating's mentally ill. I think that's no. I just why is that when people do stupid stuff? Is you always assume people assume they're mentally ill. No, he's a moron. Truss seems to forget how Sunak made his money. Yeah, that's true actually. The Chinese and rupees. Put your money into the rupee, the ruble, and no one's going to buy the ruble. Come on, Michael. Come on. The Bank of England has announced it will carry out temporary purchase of long-dated bonds. Bonds are IOUs issued by the government. Selling bonds is how governments borrow money from international markets. It makes sense. Bonds are often called gilts in the UK because we used to gild the edges with gold, which, okay. UK bond prices crashed after Quating's not so mini budget on Friday. The markets were apparently worried about how much extra borrowing the new Chancellor was committing to. So essentially the markets losing faith in the UK. More borrowing means the UK has to issue more bonds. With an increased supply, the value of each individual bond would go down because the more supply equals more supply without more demand usually means prices get diluted because you can sell bonds on. So if there's say 100 bonds on the market and you own one of them, if there's demand for 200 bonds in the market, if people are looking to buy bonds, you can sell off your bond for more money. Traders didn't want to hold on to bonds if they expected them to fall in value in the future, so they sold them. If there are too many bonds, they'll go down in value, which means that you'll get less on it than what you bought it for. Yeah, I would argue these people are just deranged. Honestly, they're just absolute lunatics. So the Bank of England said today it will buy up as many bonds as it needed to restore orderly market conditions. In other words, to bring the prices of bonds back to normal. So essentially, what the Bank of England said, they're going to buy up a load of the supply, so that there's not as much of it on the market, which increases scarcity, which means the price of bonds would naturally go back up, which would put more faith into the. Which will build up more faith for people buying it because you're not going to immediately lose your investment because the government are selling a load more. Hope that made sense. It's a supply and demand thing. It makes more sense if you think about it on simple terms rather than in the complicated terms which people typically put them out at. But, Channel 4's fact check team are pretty good. Why does the Bank of England, or the government for that matter, care if bond prices are low or volatile? The answer is that bond prices are important for pension funds. So this is another bit that's quite important. I do wonder, right, because Peston put out a similar thread, and I'm wondering, did one side copy the other side? So a sudden drop in bond prices is bad for pension funds in the short term, at least because of the complex ways they try and insure them up against changes in the market. The upshot is, without the Bank of England's intervention, some of the pension funds could have run out of money, which means essentially they go bankrupt, which means that people will lose their pensions. The background of all this is very complicated. Yeah, thanks Channel 4 fact check team. You're not wrong there. But, oh, that's... No, okay, we'll leave that. I don't know what that tweet's about. So here's Robert Peston's tweet. So if we have a look, when did Channel 4 put their one out? So 4/12, 28th, and 5/24, 28th. You know, and sometimes I give Robert Peston, a lot of stick, because the guy, sometimes he just seems moronic, but sometimes, you know, maybe this is his team that helped him put this together, but sometimes the dude actually has half a brain, which is respectable in this day and age. So let's have a look. So he says, I'm going to try and explain what's going on here. So the Bank of England has gone into the market to buy up £65 billion worth of UK government bonds with maturities of 20 years or more. So effectively, these are long-term bonds here with that the government are buying up. Maturing in 20 years means that you're going to be paying interest on them for 20 years. Then you'll get your money back once it matures in 20 years. It all stems from a dramatic collapse in the price of these government bonds called gilts. A collapse magnified by Friday's fiscally loose mini-budget. The collapse in these prices caused a liquidity crisis for what are called liability-driven investment funds, which have a gross value of £1.5 trillion, of which a staggering £1 trillion has been invested in gilts and other bonds. So what these pension funds have done, by the looks of it, is buy a lot of government bonds, and there are reasons for that. It helps them to invest further money. But yeah, hello Skylar. But point being is that the bond market is very important, evidently, for pensions, and this stuff again is way above my pay grade. The one person who I'd really want to be covering this one, he can't do YouTube for health reasons, and it's genuinely a tragedy. I don't think he's here, but he's the one guy I'd really want covering this stuff, because he's good at covering this stuff, and you know, even I can understand it, which is, you know, a really good sign of how good the coverage is. What is this? BBC local radio presenters massacre trust. Oh yeah, we're going to get to that soon. We'll get to that soon. Faith of the Bank of England assumes a sane government. I mean, we've got no choice but to believe in Andrew Bailey, who's an absolute moron. Our only choice is to hope Andrew Bailey really steps up here, because we were looking at an absolute disaster yesterday. These are, you know, so let's go back a second before I get too distracted. So we know bonds are important to the pensions industry, right? The pension sector. These are largely leverage funds, which means that they buy the gilts. So these pension companies, they buy the bonds. They frequently use them as collateral to raise cash in what's known as the repo market, and then use that cash to buy more gilts, then pledge the gilts and buy more gilts, and so on. So what they do is they leverage it. So they'll say they'll have, say, £1,000 worth of bonds, right, and they'll leverage it. And the multiplication factor is one I haven't got. I don't know a lot about, because I've read different things about how much you can leverage on, say, for example, if you're doing foreign exchange trading, forex, etc. But say, I think I've read 3 to 50 times you can leverage the money for. Absolute crazy numbers. But say, for example, right, you take out £1,000 worth of government bonds. You purchase it, right, and then what you do is you leverage it. So you take out a loan worth 3 times the amount of the government bonds, which I know it sounds like a moronic system because it is. You take out 3 times worth, you get a loan worth 3 times the amount of government bonds you have because you've leveraged it, and then with that 3x money, £3,000, you buy more bonds. So you buy another £3,000 worth of bonds, then you leverage that for 3 times, and you get to £9,000 like that, and you keep scaling up and up and up. By the looks of it, that's what he's saying here, in my opinion. Now, the risk of raising money in this way, when the value of the collateral collapses, which it has done with the crash of gilt prices, the funds have have to somehow find cash either to repay the money they borrowed or pledge more collateral. So what that means is your collateral in this case is worthless. Let's just read comments quickly. Government bonds are supposed to be a safe haven. Yeah, that's true. Especially the UK's bonds. You know, developed economy bonds are meant to be more of a safe haven because there's very little chance of the country going into the economy collapsing. I can't remember the exact word. Defaulting on the debt. There's a very low chance we'd default on the debt. And who does not think Kwarteng and his city mates knew all about this beforehand and are now draining the Bank of England dry? I wouldn't be surprised. With all this happening, the government wanted to deregulate the financial markets. I mean, it would have been way worse. Could you imagine if they did the deregulation thing and then this thing happened? They must have seen a runaway effect being triggered. Pension funds being forced by their policies to sell off but the bonds, driving the value down, forcing way more pension funds to sell. I think that's why the Bank of England stepped in. Yeah, I think you're right there. Clock. I think what they saw was you'd see a massive negative spiral on government bonds, the value of them. And so, especially with the government paying more in yields, I think out of most of the developed economies, I think the UK are going to pay the highest on the yield for interest rates. I think it's like 5% or something like that, which is a good return on it. But if your bond is worthless, at the end of the day, you're not going to want to keep it. So effectively, this whole leverage system was going to collapse because you need collateral. When you take out a loan, whoever's giving you the loan, a bank or whoever has given you a loan based on these bonds, would be very twitchy about this whole situation, especially if these pension funds were going to run out of money. Effectively, I don't know what happens in that case. A lot of people lose their pensions. Germany 2.2%, so the UK 4.5% yield, so that's double. Effectively, that's double. Wild. Forcing them to sell more gilts and other assets, driving down the prices of those gilts and other assets in a way that can undermine their solvency and the solvency of other important institutions that are invested in these gilts and other assets. Effectively, a massive downward spiral. It risked a market's bloodbath, and the point I haven't made till now, is these liabilities-driven investment funds, LDIs, were owned by final salary pension schemes as devices to better match their liabilities to millions of pensioners with further income from assets. I mean, I'm not too well versed in what that means. The huge immediate risk was that these pension funds themselves would become formally insolvent because their liabilities to the LDIs would be greater than their assets. So what the Bank of England has tried to do is with these, I think effectively these things would liquidate. That's what it means. These pension funds would liquidate because they don't have the assets, and what that means is people will lose money, and it would just be an absolute disaster class. That's how I'm reading into this. I could be wrong. LDIs, again, this stuff's way above my pay grade. There's a reason why they pay Peston the big bucks. It's not just because he's a bit of a Tory show, in my opinion. Match their liabilities. But again, this is the stuff the government were looking to deregulate. The government were looking to make sure these insurance companies, these pension funds, wouldn't have to hold up onto as much capital, and therefore when an emergency like this happens, they're more likely to liquidate. So that's the situation we could have been in if the government went ahead with their insane schemes. So that's why the Bank of England purchased a load of these gilts. I think it's to bail out a lot of these pension funds as well, because they're the ones that they would have been bailed out from. What did the public gain from this? The appearance of being helped, more public service cuts. The public, I think if the Bank of England didn't do this, a lot of people would have lost their pension funds. Let's put it that way. Because a lot of people's pension funds are in private companies that invest the money on their behalf. So if you lose people's pension funds, you're talking a nightmare scenario, especially because now it's mandatory. You're automatically enrolled into a pension fund. You're automatically enrolled into a pension fund. You don't get a choice in it. You have to opt out. Before, you had to opt in, but the government changed the rules on it. This is all to make impossible for Labour to make a second term. I mean, we'll see about that. We'll see about that if that happens. If the crisis gets really bad and Labour just keep saying it's going to take us a while to fix it, we've got to fix the mess inherited from the last Tory government, which is what the Conservative Party have been saying for like 12 years now. If people are buying the Tory that argument, then they'll probably buy the Labour one if Labour can make a credible argument. Imagine Johnson becomes PM again. Jeez, I mean, he can't be worse than Truss at this point. At least the two chancellors he employed, what's his name, Javid and Sunak, actually knew what they were doing, relatively speaking. So far, it seems to be working, but the Bank of England accepts all of it is doing is managing the transition to lower gilt prices and higher yields. So effectively, what he's saying is the price of bond is going to be lower and the interest rates are going to be higher, which again is not the way around you want it to be, in an orderly way. And it accepts the gilt prices may ultimately fall back to those lower levels, which means that it'll be incurring losses on the 65 billion bonds it's committed to buy. So essentially, the Bank of England is taking the hit instead of these pension funds. That's how that reads to me. The Bank of England, I think, has bought these bonds from these pension companies in order to make them liquid again. The scary part is that 65 billion was just a temporary stabilisation. Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's temporary. What else? 65 billion. The losses will sit with taxpayers since Kwarteng and the Treasury have indemnified the Bank of England for any falls in the value and the bond it buys. It will put another way, this is not a magic rescue. So the Treasury has indemnified the Bank of England for any falls in the value of bonds. So I think that means the government will bail out the Bank of England effectively. It will, sort out the losses that is incurred by this. It will cost a lot of money, and that someone is probably the government, and therefore taxpayers. Finally, though, it should not be the case that if you are in the final salary pension scheme, your pension is at risk. The reason is that the pension regulator calculates the value of a pension scheme's liabilities by using a discount rate on the future cash of pension payments, and is linked to the gilt yield, and when that yield rises, blah, 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 blah. So here is the almighty paradox. Pension funds could have collapsed today because of a shortage of cash or liquidity, but having been bailed out by the Bank of England at some cost for taxpayer, pension funds should emerge stronger. Strange but true, because a lot of their debts have been purchased. I think that's why they're going to be emerging stronger. And plus the fact that they can buy bonds cheaper now and at higher yields. None of this, however, absolves Kwarteng or Trust from responsibility from a wholly avoidable crisis. If they hadn't pushed the fiscal boat out with their too loose mini budget, the Bank of England would not have had to wade into the £65 billion with our money. So hopefully, relatively, that made sense. Apart from the LDI bit, apart from the LDI bit, I hope that most of this makes sense. It looks like what happened was the Bank of England effectively bought up all of these bonds that have lowered in value in order to bail out these pension companies, because they would have been liquid. They would have been insolvent, basically, and the Bank of England took on that debt, which the government will bail the Bank of England out of, and has made it stronger. So effectively, this is the government having to £65 billion is nothing to scoff at, but this is minor stabilisation. This ain't it. This ain't it. I'll keep this thread because I'll try and use it to explain more stuff. So you got, at some point this morning, this is from yesterday, someone saying here, let's see, I see who they're quoting, but essentially they were close to a Lehman Brothers moment. It got close to essentially a full-on meltdown, effectively. There's a couple more things. Sorry, I'm just messaging someone quickly. See, check out Navarro Media yesterday. Their guest, Gary Stevenson, wealth economist, explained what's been going on. Bruh, alright, LA, let's not be talking about people's waistlines here. Play nice. So you got Sam Coates, we cited earlier, saying he's told by a City source it's hard to overstate how serious the situation is. There is concern the health of the pension funds, and this is why the Bank of England has acted. This is a self-inflicted financial crisis by the Trust government. Quite something. So yeah, that's the situation right here. And here's the final thing I wanted to get to today. Yes. Which is Liz Truss getting stomped by local media. By local news outlets. So it's, small regional ones.
It's also about how we grow the size of the pie so that everyone can benefit.
By borrowing more and putting our mortgages up.
We need to borrow more this winter for the energy crisis that we're facing.
That's true, but we're also borrowing significantly more for the tax cuts. We're borrowing around 42 billion, I think, for the tax cuts. So how's she going to justify that?
And I think that was the right thing to do.
We're going to spend more in mortgage fees under what you've done based on the...
And let's not forget here, Liz Truss announced the energy schemes weeks ago. It didn't cause a financial meltdown. It was the mini budget that caused the financial meltdown.
...predictions than we would have saved with energy.
I don't think anybody is arguing that we shouldn't have acted on energy.
It's the tax cuts they need to really be talking about.
Local consent right now.
This is about fracking.
What does that look like? Scott Benton, the Conservative MP for Blackpool South, in a tweet says he believes that people in Blackpool South do not support fracking. This is the Tory MP for Fylde, Mark Menzies, in the House of Commons.
If the Prime Minister is to remain a woman of her word...
I'm covering that in an upcoming video where Ed Miliband absolutely savaged Mog.
A woman that we can believe in, which I believe she is. Can the Secretary of State outline how that local consent will be given and demonstrated in my constituency of Fylde?
What does local consent look like, Prime Minister?
Well, the Energy Secretary will be laying out in more detail exactly what that looks like, but it does mean making sure there is local support for going ahead. And I can assure
it sounds like you don't
know. And I can assure Mark Menzies. Well, there are various details.
Oh, let's see. Westminster voting intentions. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh no, nope. I can't remember. I think it's Alex. Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking at this poll, right? Let's bring it up actually. Let's bring it up. Give me 2 seconds, guys. Give me 2 seconds. I'm just gonna quickly just tweet and then we'll come back to the videos. Wowzer. Look at the state of this. Wow. That's true. Mr. Badass, if you make that comment one more time, I'm gonna mute you from my channel. I'm gonna hit you with the internet hack IFAM. Don't be bringing bad comments like this. Let's see, why borrow for tax cuts? Why not tax the energy companies to pay for the reduction in bills? I don't know. It's Tories, isn't it? It sounds like you don't know apply so many things. True that. Those Tories remind me of the description of the Tories in power during the Irish famine. Their ideas are the same. Malfeasance of this level should be prosecutable. Leeds was really on fire. Hell yeah, I'm trust. What? But yeah, if we have a look at this, I mean, Westminster voting intentions. That's a stonker right there. I mean, getting that amount of vote share is just what that means for final seats. You'd have to do some other analysis to that, but that's stonking right there. That's absolutely stonking. So there's one guy down here. Let's see. Where's that? There's a guy with the Twitter pages. Keir Starmer. Any other party would be 20 points ahead. He's done it, to be fair. I mean, that's a stonker. That's madness. That's a big oof moment right there. That's a huge one. I mean, don't know what's going on with the Green Party and the Lib Dems, but wow, that's like 33 points. That's a 33-point lead. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Wow. This is historic stuff here. This is, no doubt Phil will cover this tomorrow, given he's Labour's biggest fan, but to be fair, I don't blame him. I mean, this is historic stuff here. That is, I've never seen one side just implode. Just a government just implode like this. Just absolutely have no idea what the hell is going on. Just, that's a big oof right there, man. That's oof size maximum. That's, where's that thing? I might use that for a thumbnail. I mean, look at that. Look at the state of that. Look at that. 20 points ahead. That's wild, Wow, kind of taken back here. I mean, to be fair, it's not wrong. I mean, the fracking stuff is a nightmare. But, Labour coming off a pretty good conference, which I'll talk about some point soon. We go back to Liz Truss being absolutely slammed here.
Detailed issues to be worked through, but I can assure Mark Menzies that I will make sure there is local consent if we are to go ahead in.
She doesn't define what local consent is.
Any particular area with fracking.
But your local MPs don't want it. All Conservative. In the past, the County Council have said.
Let's not forget Conservatives. Some of the Conservative seats there, especially their heartlands, are in rural areas where the fracking would happen.
they didn't want it, yet your government overturned it. The science hasn't changed. Why can't you tell us this morning there won't be a return to fracking in Lancashire?
Well, I don't accept the premise of your question.
Why?
It's certainly the case at present, because what I've said is if there is local consent, we will go ahead. We need to explore where there is local consent and where there isn't, and we're still doing that work.
Your
I don't think we
Chancellor-
should rule out the whole
Okay.
of Lancashire.
You talked about how it's a success in other countries, but in America they...
It's not a success in other countries. It's really bad.
Do it in the middle of nowhere. Do you actually know where Preston New Road is, where they have been fracking?
Well, I don't think I've been to that site in the past.
Shouldn't you?
Oh, mate, flammable water. That's just such a bizarro sentence. In America, there was like a river that was on fire. I think it's during like the 1960s or something like that. But yeah,
Well, as I've said, we will only go ahead with projects where there is local consent. I'm very, very clear
to be
about
fair,
that.
I mean, I don't know if that's his co-host or his wife, but yeah, he looks pretty happy.
Now, we will make sure that that local consent is in place. And
she didn't define what local consent is. I mean, that's just wild. Trust ripped to shreds on her evasive approach to non-answers.
More than £2,500 for a typical energy bill. We've also taken action to reduce our tax burden.
That audio is a bit painful.
And spur.
Yeah, but Prime Minister, with respect, that
so
is
we
the
get
same
economic
scripted answer you've
growth
given
going.
to every BBC local radio station this morning. You've got the Bank of England stepping in now to try and clean up a mess a government has caused. That has never happened.
We have a very, very difficult economic global
I reckon she went on radio stations because there's no camera and she's got like a whole list of talking points. I reckon that's why she's gone for the radio stations. What do you guys think?
situation because of the war that Vladimir Putin has perpetrated in Ukraine.
Again, you know, we're not seeing a meltdown with the European Central Bank. They are not going into meltdown like we are. And let's not forget that the EU are way more impacted than we are when it comes to, when it comes to Russia. When it comes to, you know, trade with Russia. The EU member states are way more exposed than we are. When it comes to, you know, energy, when it comes to trade generally. So to argue that it's because of Vladimir Putin is just ridiculous.
And countries are under pressure around
Yeah, but this isn't Putin. This isn't just about Putin. I mean, your Chancellor on Friday opened up the stable door and spooked the horses so much you could almost see the economy being dragged behind them.
God damn. I mean, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. You know, the market's got spooked more than when my cat sees the vacuum cleaner, which if he sees you touch the vacuum cleaner, he's gone. He's bolted. Maybe I'll get it on video. I don't want to traumatise him though, but yeah, that's how fast it's gone.
This is about Putin and the war in Ukraine. That is why
It's really not.
we are
So the Bank of
facing
England's
such high
intervention
energy
yesterday
prices.
was the fault of Vladimir Putin, was it?
Sorry. Sorry.
Why we
So
are
the Bank of
facing
England's
such high
intervention
energy
yesterday
prices.
was the fault of Vladimir Putin, was it?
What I was saying is it's very difficult in stormy times in the international markets.
Oh my God.
And of course, the Bank of England is independent. It takes the action it needs to take, and it is responsible for interest rates, and it is responsible for financial stability.
Oh my God! You can tell he just lost it here.
What I was saying is it's very difficult and the war in Ukraine. That is why we are
So the Bank of
facing
England's
such high
intervention
energy
yesterday
prices.
was the fault of Vladimir Putin, was it?
What I was saying is it's very difficult and
Intervention yesterday was the fault of Vladimir Putin, was it?
I mean, that's just he's lost it. I mean, this one's particularly rough as well. BBC Leeds one. I think that's all of them, but this one's particularly pretty funny, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know why she thought the sorry, my T so couldn't comment if that's a predicted Labour lead and they win. Will this damage the PR debate? Possibly. It could damage PR. But the thing is, right, if Labour did get that vote share, right, say for example, next election, Labour win 54% of the vote, right? The odd thing is there's no SNP though. That's what kind of I find a bit weird. There's no SNP on here. But for example, if Labour do win by 54%, the argument for PR still makes sense, because if Labour can win by 54% at another election, it means that they've got a majority. So, if they want to cement their legacy, they have to do PR. Maybe if they think they're confident they can win a second election, then fine. But I think, if I were them, I would do PR. But you could be right there, Akis. You could be right there that if Labour do win a stonking majority, they might not care. But they need to remember what happened in '97. Yes, they had 13 years of rule, but that's been completely decimated. 5 years of Tory rule destroyed what Tony Blair and Gordon Brown had built. Everything that they had built had been destroyed. And look at it. What's left? What's left? I think this is a question Phil asks a lot: is what's left of the Blair and Brown governments? You've had rapid expansion of the academy program, which, okay, it's fine. I don't necessarily think it's a great idea, but that's one of the things I think Blair and Brown implemented. What else is left that they put into place? Genuinely, the Bank of England's still independent. That might change. I don't think it will, given the fact that the Bank of England essentially saved them. That's about it, I think. The OBI and IFS exist, I guess, if you want to count those as kind of Blair and Brown's legacies. But what have they got? Genuine question. What are the wins that the government have got here? There's not many. Pound didn't drop against Madagascar ARE, but I think that's the only currency. God damn. I saw the pound was doing badly against the Bangladeshi taka as well, which my mum's very not happy about. It's a fairly recent tradition. Party leaders make themselves available to local radio stations and conferences. I didn't know that. That's fair. I thought she was going on to kind of avoid the big hitters. But then again, these are people who are looking to make names for themselves as well. The permanent government civil service doesn't let ministers leave the building without bulleted speaking notes. Yeah, I mean, it genuinely looks like she's been given a list of notes to read from. The thing is, though, they'll blame... What they'll do is they'll blame someone else. They'll blame something else for this. They'll blame Putin. It won't be the fault of the free market. Let's hope Labour don't mess this one up. Let's have a look.
Minister.
Good morning.
How are you? How are you doing? Have you slept well?
I have. Thank you very much. And it's great to be here on Radio Leeds.
I am really glad that you are here as well.
It does not go well.
Because since Friday, since your Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng's mini-budget, the pound has dropped to a record low. The IMF has said that you should reevaluate your policies. And the Bank of England has had to spend £65 billion to prop up the markets because of what they describe as a material risk. Where have you been?
Well, I think we've got to remember the situation we were facing this winter.
Okay, so let's remember the question that's been asked, which is about the mini-budget, right? It was about the tax cuts. That's the key here. The tax cuts were the main thing that announced. The energy support was announced before the mini-budget, okay? These are the important things to remember here. Essentially, we're building a timeline. So for her to argue anything else makes no sense.
We were facing a situation where people could have had to pay energy bills of up to £6,000.
It's not relevant, and the cap, it's not really a cap. It's just they've capped the kind of average price people are looking to pay.
Where inflation was increasing, and where we were looking at an economic slowdown, which would have had a huge impact right across the country, including in places like Leeds.
And yet inflation is still going up.
We had to take decisive action, and that's why we took action to make sure people aren't paying a typical fuel bill of more than £2,500.
Yeah.
That's going to come in this Saturday.
That was before the mini-budget, though, Prime Minister.
There you go. Boom. There you go. Boom. She said the important thing there, which is that was before the mini-budget. What's this? 65. Lots of zeros. GBP was the net payment into the EU. Oh, and plus it's done in euros as well, isn't it? That's the UK paying into the EU, the divorce settlement is done in euros, which if the pound keeps dropping, that divorce settlement will keep going up.
I'm talking about the last 4 days. Where have you been? Because we've not heard from you in the last 4 days.
Well, I'm here today on Radio Leeds talking to you.
Brilliant. I'm so glad that you are.
The point I'm making is that we had to take decisive action to help people through this winter and next winter. I understand that families are struggling with their fuel bills, and we had to take urgent action to get our economy growing, get Britain moving, and also deal with inflation. And of course, that means taking controversial and difficult decisions. But I'm prepared.
Oh, they definitely were controversial.
To do that as Prime Minister, because what's important to me is that we get our economy.
Again, I think you know, a lot of these journalists and a lot of these radio hosts could do a much better job here, because she's done the good bit here, which is she's asked the question that was before the mini budget
though. Well, I'm here today on Radio Lead to help people through this window.
And they've just let her, you know, she's kind of just let her keep talking, which I wouldn't have done. I would have said, look, you've announced these things before the mini budget. Why is, you know, we know that it's the tax cuts that have made the market go jittery. That's what I would have said. There's nothing more I want to speak about. This is like a whole different thing. So yeah, it's just, you know, here we go. You know, the Tories are going to get more and more nervous about this. You know, how this translates into seats. I think you're saying, what, 330 seat majority, 333 majority seat for Labour. So that means the Tories are going to lose a lot of seats here, a lot of seats, and that means more and more Tory MPs are going to be very nervous about, is it going to be their seat? Because let's not forget here, I don't know why the Lib Dems are down, right? But the Lib Dems are going to be vying at the Tories to take away a lot of the South, the Tory heartland, and the rural areas. Labour are going to be pushing in the North and in the Midlands, try and take over these sorts of areas, and it kind of pushes the Tories into a really dangerous position, because if the interest rates do hit around 5%, okay, that's the Bank of England interest rate, that's not the retail interest rate. If it hits around the 6 or 7% mark, people are going to lose their homes, and if people lose their homes, they won't forget that. They won't forget, you know, the trauma that they face if you're, you know, in your situation where you've lost the place you live in. A lot of these Tories are landlords. A lot of them are, you know, own their homes, pay mortgages. So some of them are retirees that they might not have a mortgage. They might have paid it off or close to paying it off. But the ones who are the Gen Xers, the ones that have still got time left on their mortgage, right? Because they're the ones that put the Tories, I think, over the line really in the last election, the Gen Xers, not just the boomers this time. Those Gen Xers have put themselves in a position where they might not be able to afford the mortgages that they have. And that significantly damages their kind of standard of life if they have to sell their homes, especially because the price of houses is going to start falling, or at least slowing down, given the fact that the interest rates are going up. So the housing market should cool off a bit. But the problem now is, if you sell your house, you're not going to sell it as what it might have been worth a few months ago. And that puts those people in a very precarious position. You have to remember, local radio is the training ground before national broadcasters like Sky. Yes, it's a big chance for some of these radio hosts to actually make a name, but I don't think she's done the best job here. I'm not going to be like too mean. I think, on the whole, most of these radio presenters did a much, much better job than people like Andrew Marr or anyone else did on the BBC. The green sheets of the scorched earth, you know, the red sheets of the scorched earth. I don't think there's a lot more I want to talk about. I'm going to keep that Robert Peston thread. It's the LDI stuff I didn't really understand, but the rest of it makes a lot of sense, so I'll probably cover that in like a separate video. But yeah, you know, the whole situation is the pensions almost went into meltdown. The government buying up long-term bonds. It looks like we were close to having a full-on meltdown here. Some of this stuff is, again, it's above my pay grade. But yeah, you know, the taxpayers are going to have to essentially pay for all this stuff anyways, which is, you know, standard, I guess. I'm voting Green Party, never going to vote Labour again. I mean, sure, okay. Whatever then. All well and good, the Tories saying she had the decisive action to help people. How is public services going to do that? Because that's what they're going to talk about now, more swingering austerity cuts. Yeah, that's going to happen. You're going to see more and more cuts to local government, more and more cuts to central government. The government already moaning and telling departments to get ready for more cuts. Excuse me. That could be on top of the cuts that Rees-Mogg was already planning on doing when he asked them to cut a third of their civil service forces. So what that means is we're putting ourselves in a much weaker situation where the government are going to be far less effective. That's the situation right now. That's what's happening right now. But I guess, you know, if the Bank of England didn't do this, the government would have had to step in here. I don't know what the government could have done to avoid this crisis, but given the fact that it's pensions, pension companies that would have been looking at liquidation. I mean, because the situation is that in the UK, like, you can kind of choose who your pension pot goes to, but normally your employer picks them out for you. At least that's my experience with it. The employer picks the company. I think you can change it if you want to, but you know, I've got like 2 different pensions with 2 different companies I really don't care about. that much. The NHS, other services on the edge. I think the NHS is gone, mate. I'll be honest. I think the NHS is gone. The staffing crisis is just dead. Tory conference is falling apart already. Has Tory conference started? See, cut House of Commons by a third. Example. I mean, they should cut their wages. I'll be honest. They should cut all the salaries to the MPs. Government's going to be far less effective. Is that possible? Maybe not the government, but the civil servants, yes. When it comes to coming up with policy implications, doing impact assessment reports, cutting down the civil service makes the government far less effective. Smith, the Tories are about to deliver negative income. I mean, we're looking at a disaster situation here. We're looking at bad things, effectively. Yeah. It's all over, you know. In the words of a man who was caught cheating on his significant other, it's all over. Don't cry, don't beg, please sir, gotta go. He's on like some sort of wife cheaters edition. It was hilarious. It's all over. That's the situation right now. We are seeing, it's all over. You know, I tell you what, I'll put it into.
Not to speak. If I speak, I am in big trouble.
Sorry, I just love that quote so much. Let's see. Let's see if I can find it. Oh no, I can't play this. I'll get copyright for that. Let's see. I'm trying to find a clip for it, but it's all over. Mike Goldberg. Ah, this is anticlimactic. That's his name, right? Goldberg. Oh, I can't find it. That's upsetting. That is most upsetting. I was trying to find a quote where he goes, "It is all over," just like that. But yeah, it's all over. You know, Liz Truss is. She's just messed it up so badly. She's messed up so badly. It's unreal. It's unreal. Oh, okay. Big what's his name, man? All shorts with his sus thumbnails. Yeah, there's not much more I really want to talk about on this one. I might cue the music. And yeah, if you guys got any comments you want to add, I'll go on for another few more minutes. If you have anything you guys want to add to this conversation, feel free to put it in the comments in the live chat. If not, I'll end the stream in about 1:15. Because yeah, got not much more to say. I got work tomorrow anyways. Do you need money? Yeah, obviously. Who doesn't need money? Poor pensioners being driven out of their trailer parks in Spain. So sad. I mean, that seems a bit mean. I don't think. Do a lot of them live in trailer parks in Spain? That's a weird way to retire, in my opinion. The question was always, will the Tories manage to take the country down with them? Starting to look like they were. I mean, yeah, they're already doing it. I mean, they're going to burn it down. They built it up to burn it down. Effectively, they've kept the economy very stagnant over the last 12 years. Growth under Labour was so much better than what we're seeing now. We're in a position where it's a nightmare. We're in a nightmare scenario right now. That's all I'm going to say. Thanks, mate. You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to do that. Thank you, number 3. You did not have to do that. I appreciate it though. I appreciate it a lot. Trust me. It goes a long way for the channel. Especially with what I've got planned. If my employment is long term, I'm looking at doing some good upgrades for the channel. Getting a new mic. Looking at getting a Blue Yeti for the channel. Getting a couple other bits and pieces. And really just going to step it up into next year. It just depends on what the employment scenario is with the channel. With where I'm at now. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't have to do this. Yeah, I don't have what do you call it? A lot of time to do these. It takes time to organise these and just come up with what I actually want to talk about. I might do more in the future. According to Sam Coates, the band got cancelled because of the rail strike. What band? What band are you talking about? But yeah, live streams are fun. It takes a long time to get this stuff organized and things like that. But I'm pretty happy with it. It's I want to do these weekly, but at the same time, it's just it's a lot of energy to try and do content for each day of the week and do a live stream. It just doesn't work with me working full time. I've already got them, mate. I'm just not the ones that men want to ogle at. That's the problem, Carpenter. The British tourists are gone. The Russian tourists are gone. Now, if we can get the Germans to keep their clothes on, Spain will be quite nice. I have no idea what the Germans are doing in Spain. I'm not going to comment on it too much. Yeah, no worries, everyone. We're all broke. Yeah, true that. Indeed, we are. But yeah, I'm hoping to get the mic. I'm trying to think what other stuff I want to get the boom arm and get a new graphics card so I can use the software on it. That's kind of the main goals of the channel for next year. The Tories have it all. Yeah, see you later, Daniel. I think that's going to be all for me for today. You still have more content coming up. I'm trying to see what have I got lined up for you guys. Got about 3 days. I've got a Tory MP triggered by Gary Lineker tweeting about the sewage dumping. That was hilarious. That was genuinely really funny. He got so upset. Gary Lineker pointing out their failings. You've got the a load of greenhouse farmers going out of business. That's pretty. It's not great considering how much cucumbers and lettuce they farm for the UK. More Russians protesting against the 100% mobilisation in Russia, and of course my boy Ed Miliband, Red Ed Redemption, the king, attacking Rees-Mogg over fracking. There's a couple other things I wanted to talk about. I'll have to organise everything for the weekend. It's kind of my plan, so I might do that tonight and Monday. Tonight and tomorrow, I think that'll be the next 2 days of my work. Just consumed with preparation for the weekend and doing more videos. I've got some new Yu-Gi-Oh cards I need to buy as well, so that's gonna be fun. Sort out my friend's birthday present as well. Very busy few weeks for you, boy. Yeah, see you later, Akis, mate. I'll catch you tomorrow. Yeah, see you tomorrow. A penny for the Tory MP's thoughts on that polling. I mean, they're going to be very nervous, I imagine. But we'll wrap it. We'll wrap it there. Thanks everyone who joined. We hit, I think, 50. I'll say 50. Did we hit 50 people? It's quite close. Yeah, we did. We did hit 50 people. That's a first time. Maybe I'll keep coming up with sensationalist. How about the Nord Stream pipeline? If that's a viewer's request, if you put some stuff in the Discord server, Christian Cruz, I will have a look. If you're still in the server, I will take a look for you. Yeah, a lot of people. Hello, good evening, good night, everyone. Yeah, if you Cruz, post it in the server, mate, and I'll have a look. Yeah, be safe, everyone. Take care. Remember, stay alert, guys. See if I can find the. Can I find the Metal Gear Alert theme? This will play us out. Yeah. Just remember, guys. Whenever you feel like you're in danger, remember this music. Because you got to stay alert. And if you've got any investments in the UK, good luck with them as well. Because, yeah, it's not looking great for us. Well, I do love tabs. I've got 16 gigs of RAM, right? Check my usage out. Look, I've got 16 gigs of RAM. Look at that. 2 gigs of RAM only being used. It's not even making a dent. So yeah, I'm going to keep my RAM open. I can have this many tabs open and still play Civ 6. That's how good, that's how spec the computer is right now. But yeah, anyways, I'll catch you all in my next stream, which I've no idea when that's going to happen. No idea. But until then, I'll see everyone next time.